You know, EFA came out with a paper saying this a couple of years ago now, that the fracking industry in the US basically hasn't been profitable for the last 10 years. You know, we copped some criticism, and now Deloitte's are coming out with the same conclusion, essentially. Into this really poor gas market, we're seeing a massive expansion to come out of Qatar. They're looking at increasing production by 64% by 2027. Qatar was last year the world's largest LNG exporter. It's now the second largest compared to Australia, but you know, it's right up there with Australia. We're pretty neck and neck as the world's largest exporters, and they're looking at this massive expansion in production. They're cutting the price to do it by about 22% to try and secure new customers. Why are they doing it? It's very simple. Qatar is pretty much a one-trick pony as an economy. It's got gas or gas. It's a very low-cost producer, so they can expand and make money. Unlike Australia, we're not as low cost as Qatar. Actually, no one globally is as low cost as Qatar is. The other thing is that the North field that they're looking at developing is the same field as Iran's South field. It's just got an artificial line through it called a border. It's the same gas field. And Iran have gone on and developed their half of the field. So Qatar are forced into developing their part, otherwise they miss out on the gas. Iran will pump it all out. This is just a quick graph on Australian domestic consumption. It's down 21% since 2014. So far from being this growing industry that's stimulating the economy, it's been contracting now for the last 6 years and will contract, I think, substantially more than the AEMO were predicting just last year. Investments all but ceased, as I've said. We don't need to go into that anymore. There are $11 billion of gas assets for sale at the moment in Australia. That's just what I actually publicly know about. Obviously, there'd be a lot more on the grey market. ExxonMobil has actually pulled the sale of its $3 billion gas straight assets because it failed to find a buyer. There isn't a lot of capacity to buy all these things that are for sale at the moment. Origin Energy is looking to farm out part of its Beetaloo basin in the Northern Territory. There kind of isn't a lot of appetite for that sort of thing at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see how they go. The Australian gas industry has written off $25 billion in the first 6 months of 2020. Internationally, Exxon has written off $20 billion just in the fourth quarter. So we've got massive write-offs occurring all around the world, impairing the industry's ability to invest. The three fracking companies, three big ones that head up the three consortium at Gladstone, at Santos, Origin and Shell, they've written off over $24 billion since 2014 on their failed East Coast CSG to LNG ventures. So, you know, we're really not seeing gas as a transition fuel. Gas for gas-powered generation usage has fallen 59% since 2014. That's while renewable energy has grown strongly to now account for about 25% of the total generation in the national electricity market. Now it's got to 25%. Renewable energy will just keep growing in terms of capacity. We've seen major government programs in both New South Wales and Victoria to stimulate renewable energy in the electricity system. So we're going to see a lot more of that going forward. Look, the National COVID Commission and its offshoot, the Northern Territory one that just released its report this week, both of them under, you know, with Andrew Liveris being a key player in them, are both looking at substantial, you know, giving out substantial government subsidies to the gas industry. I just don't think that's a credible way to stimulate the economy. Importantly, when we look at these net zero commitments by our state governments all around Australia and our offshore export markets, the net zero by 2050, between 2020 and 2030, we have to decrease fossil fuel production by 6% per annum. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. When you start compounding 6% per annum every year, we've got to decrease production by that amount. That's an awfully big cut in coal and gas and oil and, you know, other things that we burn production. So we need to see, at the moment, globally, we're looking at around 2% increases everyone's planning. In Australia, obviously, that's much larger. We have very big expansions going on the Northwest Shelf, you know, as you know, in the Northern Territory, in Queensland, in New South Wales. We have very big expansions going on in fossil fuel production. So it's entirely inconsistent with any of these net zero policies. And the key point here is it doesn't really matter what anyone thinks. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what Scott Morrison thinks. It doesn't matter what Angus Taylor thinks. It doesn't matter what the Labor Party thinks about all this. It's our customers that matter. And we have to listen to our customers. And our customers are saying they don't want the product. And if we're so stupid that we can't actually understand that and adapt to the new normal now, which is declining markets for fossil fuels. There was this fascinating study done by the AFI that basically showed that 1.8 jobs were lost in the ag sector for every job gained in the gas sector. So, you know, we've got to look, the Northern Territory does have a large cattle industry, and obviously we're going to see a lot of jobs lost in that industry if the gas industry goes ahead. So that's really not a great thing. And then, of course, you've got the groundwater impacts that you all know about, but I love this source. This is from the Office of Groundwater Impact Assessment, which is part of the Department of Natural Resources in Queensland. And they say that in just one CSG basin in Queensland, the Surat Basin, 122 bores have run dry as a result of CSG activities and are subject to make good arrangements. They're predicting that 571 bores will run dry over the life of the Surat Basin. And that's obviously higher than the previous estimate. That estimate keeps creeping up of the number of bores that are both affected or, you know, currently affected or will run dry. The numbers keep going up. And we are in the early days still of this industry on the east coast of Australia. You know, it's only been operating really at at scale since 2014. And so we're going to see substantial effects on other parts of the economy. So anyway, that ends my talk. Thank you very much.